Okay, so welcome to chapter one. Sorry about that, just dropped my phone. Uh, Chapter one in our book is a book chapter that's called Politics and Citizenship. And what it does is it really just kind of sets up the foundation for you to how you should think about politics and political science and kind of the things that are relevant in your life. So it starts off and gives you some definitions about what politics is, what government is, different types of governments. Um, it goes into a little bit about economics and how the money works around the world. And hear me say, if you were in one of my classes, that we live in a society where, in this country, where money is more important than people. Now, you might want to ask what that means. Well, in a capitalist system, there's always a tenuous balance between people who have money and people who don't. And, how they go about, protecting the people. Um, as a matter of fact, the very essence of the word democracy has to do with the social protection of the people. And so when people say they don't like the word socialism, for example, and some of you may not like the word socialism because of how it's sort of demonized by those who would like you to be afraid of it, don't realize that socialism is the essence of what makes our country work. As a matter of fact, if those who don't like socialism took it away for a day or a month or a year, I guarantee you they would probably come running back begging for it, because socialism is what allows for you to have things like unemployment, which allows you to have public education. You get to pay what it really costs to go to college instead of having it subsidized by the Department of Education and other sources. You'd be paying a heck of a lot more to go to school. So people who complain about it or are afraid of it because of how they'd say, well, we're going to be like Venezuela. Well, we're not Venezuela, so you don't have to worry about that. But it's really more of a fear factor than it is a lack of understanding of what it is. So hopefully in the process of this, you'll learn not to be afraid of words. Words can't hurt you like that. So I try to, and if you were in my class, you'd hear me dispel all the myths and rumors and lies about words like socialism and communism and things like that. Not because they haven't been profaned or people haven't manipulated them, but mainly because people, we have to be careful about how we let people control us with their notions of these things. Also, one of the things for me, and it doesn't come up so in the book doesn't necessarily talk about it in greater detail, but I talk about it as a context of power. And, power is the ability to influence. That simply means that, say if you wanted to turn right and I wanted you to turn left, how I would manipulate you or control you or influence you to turn left instead of turning right when you wanted to turn right. And there's four different types of power that we look at when we talk about political science. The first one is force, the physical use of force. If I if I bring my tanks up to your front door and I point them at you to get you to do what I want you to do, that's a pretty strong influencer. There's also a non-physical type of force, by the way, and it's like a psychological, the psychological, like terrorism. If I can terrorize you or make you fearful of something, I can influence your behavior as well. So like after 9/11, when they flew planes into buildings, right? They don't have to fly another plane into a building ever again. But if you're perceived as a threat or perceived that could happen, then I influence your behavior. Um, Even if unfortunately there are those in our own government, unfortunately, who will use it to also influence our behavior too by making you afraid of things and getting you to vote for policies that may not be truthfully laid out for you because they don't expect you to pay attention or look for the details in what they're saying. So be careful about that. The second type of power is called persuasion. And persuasion is basically where I present an argument to you to influence your behavior, but I give you all the truthful information so you can make a good decision. The third type, which is the one that unfortunately is most utilized today, is called manipulation. And manipulation is basically where I basically leave out some of the pertinent information so that I can influence your behavior to act or react in a certain way. And then the fourth type is called barter or trade. So I trade something for something else. So like, for example, during the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, 63 rather, no, 62, excuse me, the President Kennedy and President Khrushchev make a deal to avoid going to war by trading missiles in Turkey that we had versus the missiles they had in Cuba. And it worked out well and saved us from basically still being here today. Um, So I think you'll find it to be interesting. It also lays out in here in the book a little area where they talk about not just different types of political systems. It also talks a little bit about millennials and and the various generations that are here today and the ones that have gone previously. So they'll talk about how your generation views the world. So they have the millennials, the Generation Xers, which are the ones that just precede you, and then the baby boomers, and then the silent generation, which are the people before, 1945. And it talks about how they what they believe about certain things and the demographics, and it's important to note because how you see the world is one thing, but how other people see the world is also important. And so, as I always tell my students, it's not just about you; it's about the world you live in, other people around you, and you have to care more than just about yourself when you think about the issues that are relevant to all of us, right? Um, Anyhow, that I think you'll find it to be a good foundational chapter, and you'll see I'll be going through each chapter like this. Most of them will be a little shorter than this, but I want to kind of lay out some things for you to think about. And each chapter is supposed to leave you with different thoughts and ideas about sort of how you see the world. Okay, that's it for this one. I will see you in the next iteration. Bye.